Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Welcome to episode 125 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr David Stannard on the show with us today. David, often referred to as the Vision Guy, is an author and public speaker on vision and enterprise excellence. Today we'll be discussing the power of vision in leading and achieving an excellence journey. Let's get into the episode. David, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, welcome, Brad. Just absolute pleasure to be here and discussing a topic that is I'm very passionate about, and I know you are too.
Yeah, we were chatting just before we came on air about the part that vision plays in so many models of excellence, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But Dave, before we get into that, what's your backstory? What led you down this path to be, researching the power of vision and all the writing and the work that you do?
Yeah, and there has been a lot, and it has been a journey, which is interesting. And one has to think a little bit about where it all came from. For the last not the last couple of years, when I've sort of been past my kind of what I call my normal corporate use by date, but sort of right up until 2021, I worked in the petrochemical industry. So I worked for an organization called LyondellBasell, which had many predecessor versions and companies. And I was the site general manager for their polypropylene plant in beautiful Geelong. And literally, my sort of history with operational excellence, with systems and everything goes way back into the time when I used to work for Shell, and I was right at the sort of cutting edge of introduction, even of what we used to call quality management systems, sort of the ISO 9001, all of which I still think and find extremely valuable today. And part of that, the particular bit that never really comes out of it, because everybody looks at it, and sort of, it's ISO this and it doesn't have any value. It has as much value as you take out of it and you create out of it. And I've always been impressed with the sort of the interpretation that into, in what the PDCI, or I call it, as I call it, the PDCI or the PDCA model that comes out of the plan, do, check, improve bit of it. And during that early period this would have been back about, just after the turn of the century, and I was started down in Geelong. There were some, as an organization, as a company, we had some leadership issues and across the company. And one way to try and fix this and get everybody so-called on the same page was to do the traditional method of going off into the green somewhere, or whatever you want to call it, and having a way day and having a bit of a chat. And they'd organized a consultant or whatever to come in, and he challenged every one of us in that session to take out a sheet of A3 paper and to draw a picture of what each and every one of us as individuals wanted our part of the organization to look like. At the time, we were proposing, and because of changes in ownership, it was an ongoing process to get a very significant piece of capital expenditure and an expansion of the plant carried out. And it was a difficult process, but the vision in my mind was very clear as to what we were trying to achieve. And it wasn't a next week job, because this thing was going to take 2 to 3 years to build, massive inconvenience while you did it and try to operate a plant at the same time, and so on. But I remember drawing that picture fairly simply at that stage. And it wasn't just about hardware, it was about the culture and values that we were going to have in that organization as well. I remember taking it back, and then I took mine away. I think everybody else probably in the room had a giggle and just left theirs on the table, or took it back and just put it in the recycling bin or whatever. Mine went onto the board in my office in Geelong, and that was the forerunner of a number of visions for that site. And I started to notice as it was there, and people would come in and look at it. And that was part of my start in life, was a fairly open door sort of policy. Anybody come in and have a chat and you go, what are we talking about here? What does it look like? And it wasn't too difficult because everybody knew the expansion we were trying to do. But it was there, and that started to set that up. And from there on, I've been using those pictures ever since. So I've used that also in what is now my winery business in Bordeaux, France, at Paradise Rescued. And we got that business going as well on the basis of drawing a very clear picture of what the future should look like. And I started to find it working. And there's several reasons I'm sure we'll go into as to why that's the case, but that's the backstory as to how that all got started. And we got some momentum about using picture visions.
Oh, that's awesome. David, and what I love is the talk on actually drawing it. And please correct me if you feel I'm off course here, David. I see a lot of organizations where they go, vision is, oh, we want to be the biggest. We want to be the this. We want to be the that.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, I'm like, you can't, how can you see that? What's it look like? Describe it to me. But the power of what you're talking about here, mate, I love it, because to me, a vision, you've got to be able to see it. What more powerful way to have to see it than to draw it?
Yeah, no, look, you've raised about 6 or 7 questions in that one question. But yeah, look, you're in my view, Brad, you're right on the money. The question that I ask anybody or organization, and all of what we talk about, by the way, can apply to individuals, to families, to non-profit organizations, anything and everything, is the question is, what does it look like? Yeah, what does it look like? You know, and it's a fairly simple statement, but he laughs, you know, and we have this thing that we use and it comes in business, because business does a lot of good stuff in this sort of space and in terms of human development. But one of the things I see often enough is this thing called a vision statement. Now, that's an oxymoron. Yeah, because we want a vision. So what does it look like? We've written a few words and we've stuck them on the wall. And we'll doubtless come back to this at some point in time, but principally words on walls are worthless, that they do not have that amount of impact on us at a psychological and a neurological level. But they look good and we feel good, and we put what I would call a minimum insufficient time into thinking about it. And, you know, some of your listeners will come back and say, oh, that's rubbish. We spent years thinking this thing out, and we've come up with this one-line entry that says, you know, we're going to be the best. But the question you have to ask is always, you know, well, what does the best look like? Yeah. Tell me, what does that represent? What does it represent for, say, your customers? You know, what would be your business model that gets you to be the best? And of course, there's a definition of what is the best. I mean, you know, the best for somebody is that they're able to drive a Porsche motor car. For somebody else, it might be that they're just very happy with, you know, a run around French Twingo. And you know, there's different models for all sorts of things. And one of the things we, at a corporate level, that we get completely confused on, and the whole world is we're just completely dominated by, is what's the next quarterly EBITDA? What's the share price? And by the way, what's my remuneration? And this is just complete, you know, that is never going to get you the right answer, because you're always thinking short term. Yeah. And measurement in money terms is an outcome. It's a result. It's a KPI that indicates that maybe you've done a good job. Or it may be because you've got a very strong vision that is longer term, that you're still getting there. Yeah, it's not a vision is not about something next week. A vision is, and a lot of people get confused. Well, you know, I've got a vision that we're going to have this result this quarter. No. It's about, what does it look in the long term? Well, I always look at, you know, 3 to 5 years out as being a realistic target. For us, running a little wine business in Paradise Rescue, the target is 10 years out, because of an industry that is in fundamental change and responding to the driver to be sustainable and across the board in sustainability terms. So 10 years is a reasonable time frame if you really want to set some great targets.
That's awesome, David. Like, I think I really value what you're talking about there. I look at a vision and I'm like, the word tells you what it needs to be, doesn't it?
Right. And that's what you said there, Brad. You've got to look at that vision. Yeah. And one of the things that we kind of don't understand about our own psychology as individuals, and leadership, a huge component is about human psychology, but it's about setting a direction. And one of the things that we do not sufficiently understand in there is the power of visual data and everything visual. And one of the questions I certainly always ask when doing a talk or anything out or making a presentation is to ask people which of their 5 primary senses would they least like to lose. Not which is their preferred one, because if you ask them that before lunch, it becomes taste and smell and stuff like that. It's which would you least like to lose. And most seminars or backgrounds or whatever, you come up with an 85 to 95% answer in favor of vision and sight. Sight is our most important visual sense. And that corresponds with all of the neuroscientific data that suggests that, as much as 60, maybe more % of our brain activity is taken up with processing pictures. We think in pictures. And so sight dominates everything. It's sort of called, I think it's called the picture superiority effect is the words that I would use, although I usually relate that to something else. But sight dominates our thinking. Okay. And if you can't see it, you go back to the old phrase, I'll believe it when I see it. So what comes first, chicken or egg?
Yeah. Yeah. And so what you're saying, Dave, why it's so powerful, the vision, is that then people can see it.
Yes.
And when they can see it, they can start understanding it and moving towards it, because we're so driven by this visual sense in our body.
Yep. And the other thing that is important in there to understand, and again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I have not spent a whole lifetime doing this. I've just literally seen the results of creating picture visions and then gone back to work out why that is so powerful and why it is so relatable. Now, somewhere at the back of our brains, above the neck or whatever, there is a part of our brain that is called the RAS. And the RAS stands for, I don't know why this always goes out of my, it's not visual enough. It doesn't just stick in my mind.
Yeah.
Reticular Activation System, Reticular Activation System, RAS. And what that basically does is that looks at every bit of incoming data. And just you and I having a conversation here, yeah, okay, we're doing it across a medium like Zoom. We're talking, but I'm also mindful there's other data going around you. You've got family there. It's school holidays. The kids will be up to stuff, and you've got background. There's a huge amount of data coming in to our brains at every moment in time. And the human body has been well developed to receive all of that. And when it comes in, the brain has to decide whether this is useful or needs acting on, or whether this is just more junk that just gets put out the other ear, or wherever it goes, just into the bucket. And what we have in there is this, the RAS effectively is, like, I call it a screen, and on that screen, we hold the stuff that it's important. And every piece of data that comes in, and there's a security guard that goes, stop, check, is that useful? He compares, he scans the code. Now, off you go. But as soon as there's something interesting that's compared to what's on that screen, and it gets the aha moment, then it's captured. What is important, therefore, is to put the right stuff on that screen. And the best way to do that is to make it visual. And then if organizations or people or individuals have got a clear picture of what that future is going to look like, then every bit of data that comes in is compared and analyzed to that and says, yes, that's what I want. That's what I'm going to work on now. And it is surprising. It's, the other way of looking at it is the red car effect. You buy a red car, you never see a red car until you bought a red one, and everybody suddenly is red. And why is that? Why? Because you put that on your RAS It's on the screen. You go, oh yeah, it's a red car. Oh damn.
Yeah. Well, and I may be jumping ahead of this, but my mind is thinking about that you create this vision. It's on your RAS when you're at work or even anytime you've got it there as a filter. But I can see that it can do two things. It can, one, make you prioritize and start working on the right things, but it can also make you get rid of some things that aren't really important and optimize your time, because there seems to be like a multiple wins to that.
And there's some downsides also to that. I mean, the human body is the human body, and that brain is set up. Normally it requires some other part of the brain to tell you how to use your own brain. You know, it's a complicated discussion. But if you just let your brain go through things, it will put stuff on that RAS whether you like it or not. Everybody goes, no, that's rubbish, you know. But if you do a lot of a certain stuff in life, if you allow, and particularly, you know, we have visual media today that is so powerful, and that's why it becomes so impactful, because the brain responds to it much more, emphatically and more interested in the visual material than anything else. So it can put bad news consistently on your screen, on your filter, on your RAS. So what you also got to do is, you know, and we get into the little bit of the fairy stuff. Everybody goes, oh, we're talking dreams and stuff here. And I go, okay, put a good concrete idea and look at it consistently and put it in the RAS. That can push other stuff out of the way that you do not want to have on there.
Yeah, yeah. And you can understand over the last 3-4 years we've been through, there's plenty of opportunity there for you to be building that RAS up on negative, stressful, not so helpful topics. In today's world, there's so much noise and so much distraction coming at us. I can really see with the things David is talking about that it can create focus, clarity, and allow us to filter out a lot of the things that we need to filter out to allow us to focus on truly creating that better future. David's kindly provided us a guide for this that you can get from the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website, just on the section of downloads, that will really help us understand more how to go about it and to work to create that better future and cut out a lot of the noise and the distraction and help us focus on what is truly important. Thanks, David. Let's get back to the episode. Now, with the vision then, what are the key elements? One, of course, we've spoken about is drawing it, making it visual. But what are the other key elements of, you know, deploying and creating a powerful vision within an organization?
Yeah. There's a huge number of topics in there to unpack in that process. Look, the most important thing is taking quality time to create a quality future. I just did a podcast about 2 weeks ago, which was literally, again, under the Vision Guy brand banner, literally talking about that, you know, because we get to this time of year going, I've got a resolution. I noticed a new one's come up on the social media at the moment called intentional living. So rather than call it resolutions, which we know are fake and usually created over, you know, a couple of amber liquids or something on New Year's Eve, we now call it, I've got an intention. Yeah, okay. We need to get back to having a plan. If you want to do that, we have to put some time and effort into that. I usually work on what I call a thing called the success trifecta model. In our success trifecta model, there are 3 important ingredients. And I remember drawing this, first of all. It was in a conversation with a mutual contact that we have, Victor Sound at the time, and we were discussing that. I was Geelong the board. He phoned me. We had a discussion, and we were going through how we did get organisations aligned. And I drew 3 circles on the board, classic sort of school Venn diagram type of stuff. And in those 3 circles, I put 3 word in each. Number 1 was vision. The second one was mission, and the third one was passion. And I see a couple of Japanese models out there which have 4 circles, which get to be really complicated to draw. You know, a 4th dimension is hard. But I go mission, vision, passion. Mission, vision, passion. And where those three things interlink and overlap in the middle, I call that the DNA. Literally, as it sounds, that's the glue of the organization. That's the culture. That is the organization. It also stands for a little mnemonic. DNA is for design, end vision, and align. And that's literally sort of a three-step process that I would take organizations through to get there. Firstly, to get the vision into place. Then to actually draw it, because of the power of picture, you need to draw it. And then the third step is how do you align the organization to it? And that's one of the great powers of having a picture. Yeah, and particularly we talk about, half my organization's working from home. Yeah, they don't pass the desk in the morning to wipe the dust off the vision statement as they pass the scanning button to enter the building. But a picture you can use. So for someone like myself with Paradise Rescued, it sits as the screensaver on my iPad. So when you call the iPad up and I press the little button on the left-hand side to check that my DNA is correct, bing, there it is. It just comes up. And it is that consistent daily visual reminder that refreshes that RAS, refreshes the filter screen and goes, oh, yes, that's right. So it's always in your mind and you don't have to look at it 24/7. So you can replace that by putting a little picture on desk. So for Paradise Rescue, I give everybody, all of our team, which is pretty small, but they all have a little desk thing. It's only like an A5 piece of card in a laminate stuck on the desk. Yeah, and they take that home with them because they sort of work from home rather than they come to the vineyard to do work and they go home and it's on their desk. So if they're doing any email work or anything else, there it is. It's a good, oh yeah, look, there it is.
It's powerful, Dave. So with the process, first of all, of DNA, what's the design phase look like? What is the design element?
Yeah, the design element is a question of going through and having quality time with the right people in the organization to work out what does that future look like? What do you want it to look like? The same outcome there. This is one of the most exciting and powerful days or half days that an organization could do. It's best done with a cross-section that needs to probably include your leadership team. It depends on if you want to do it the size of the company, and I've never done it with an organization, that's so big that you're not quite sure where to start. But the same principles can apply. It's still a leadership role to set that future. So a leadership team and the ownership still has to be with the CEO. But to get groups of people round and start discussing different elements of what they want the company's future to look like is incredibly powerful. And most people come away from a day like that and go, that is the best day we've had. And what usually typically do is to get them drawing pictures, because you've got to capture the ideas. Writing words on a flip chart doesn't quite get you there. Putting notes on Post-its and then transferring them and drawing them as pictures achieves a hell of a lot. And one of the problems, of course, for a large company is, we're listed on the stock exchange. We don't draw pictures on whiteboards. Okay, that's a point of view. But once you understand the power of that picture and you people and you as a team or a leadership team, you go through that process, at the end of the day, you'll come out and say, wow, that was exciting, because you start to see what it looks like. And in the way, and once you start to do that, you actually open up the pathways to how you get there. And one of the biggest difficulties that most corporate organizations suffer from, and when you talk to them, is we've got a strategy, or we've got a strategic plan, and that's good because it means at least you put some thought into it. But vision or strategy without a vision is like archery without a target.
Yeah, great analogy.
Strategy without a vision is like archery without a target. And what happens then, people say, oh, well, we get into the land of fantasy. Well, you need to go, the process that I would use is I call it tough-minded optimism. And again, that's a series of words, and it sounds like a justification for being smart and over-optimistic. No, excessive optimism is no good either. And that's what comes out from writing things like, oh, well, our share price will be, on our EBITDA and return to shareholders, we'll pay the best dividends in the world and all that. That's fantasy. Yeah. Because you haven't thought about how you're actually going to get to that point. Apart from that, it's an outcome, as we've discussed. But you got to sit down and say, what does that best company look like? And that discussion is extremely powerful, because as you start to put down that vision, you automatically will start to strategize about how you get there. And one of the great writers about this whole area of mission and vision and everything else is a guy called Michael Hyatt, who's written a number of, I think, pretty good books on it. And one of the sort of quotes, I'm only going to paraphrase here, that he talks about is he said, well, if you got no vision, then strategy is just spinning your wheels. If you've got a vision and it's powerful, the strategies will find you. You will work it out because you've got something that's compelling, that's pulling you forward. And then you go, number one didn't work. Let's tweak that. And you keep going. And that's where the value of, if you have a vision and you're running your company on a business system basis, then your plan, do, check, improve model will work extremely well, because your data will tell you that you're not getting where you want to be. Yeah, or you are getting there, but you continue to improve that model in order to get the results that you want. But if you've got a clear vision, the target's there. The target is there.
It's so true in my game of what I work in. Like I'm involved a lot in Agile, as you know, and a lot of the listeners know. And, Agile can become a lot about just releasing a product and pumping a product out and trying to get more out. But Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwab are the founders of Scrum and Agile. They're going, no, the key is the vision. Like, where are we going? What's it look like? Because are we working on the right stuff? And, that long-term, short-term vision is the heart of it. The companies that achieve the most. And it just relates so much to what you're talking about and what you mentioned there with, if you have the powerful vision and the right vision, the strategies and the work to do will find you, because you don't always know what you need to work on, and it can change month to month, week to week, can't it?
Yeah. And, something like a COVID, and one of the things that became very difficult for people at an individual level is because the model they all held on their filter, on their RAS screen, suddenly vanished. It was no longer valuable, and it seemed to wipe it out. But you had to go back to say, no, it's a vision, it's a longer term picture. This thing is going to pass, and you've got to have some belief and faith in there. And the best way to have belief and faith is to have a clear vision of where you're going to go, because you're going to find ways around dealing with this mess. It's not fun, it's not funny, it's hurting people, it's hurting families, it's stopping interaction, it's doing all the things you don't want, it's creating stress, whatever. But if you've got that position that says, well, the future looks like this, it's not a straight line between 2 points. It's going to be a bit zigzags, and maybe there are days when you go back 3 steps before you go forward another 2, and then another 2 the further day. But it is the goal that is the important bit, and it will pull you forward when you continually look at it.
Yeah, too true. David, with the A of DNA, the align piece, where it talks about aligning the organization, what's important here? Because I can see that it's powerful that the leadership team, say in a larger company, has that vision and they've drawn it and they can all see it. And what does the align look like for you?
Yeah, the align bit is, and again, this is made a little bit harder now because, the number of people sitting around and, having the classic word that we've adopted in sort of Australian business over the last 10 years, it's a town hall meeting. So we've borrowed that one from our US colleagues. And there is a lot of value in part of that. And I know, from my own experience, how that is welcome, because people like to hear what is the leader's view of this? Where's the reassurance that we're on the right track? What does tomorrow look like? And the ability of the process of having a picture vision, is that in those type of, let's call them meetings or forums, and quite often now they're done online, they're done through Zoom, is you've got a picture that you can consistently throw up at the start of your meeting, at the end of your meeting, as a reminder. So the alignment is not about, well, that set of words that you passed at reception, or you all know our company vision is to be the best. Yeah. No, it's about, this is what it looks like. And now what has happened this last, quarter, this last year that we've had, or whatever, is following in that direction that we're looking at. And maybe we didn't get that strategy right, or maybe we didn't get that strategy right, but the commitment is to this vision. So let's go back out there and work, what is the way, and we're going to improve our strategies and improve our operation in order to get to that goal that we're seeking. So it's a rallying point for discussion. And what I usually advise is that, you use it in whatever opportunity presents it. But as a visual thing, it's something that also you can very readily use. I talked about, about putting it on, people having a small copy of it on the desk, but you can also do it on, if you are in an environment, like still manufacturing typically tends to have to be done in sort of a factory or location normally, you can't do these things just by the post and an email. So you've got places where people come together. A picture of that vision up there is a rallying point because it becomes a discussion point. And one of the things I found, certainly from my experience with LyondellBasell in Geelong, was certainly that people would stop me and say, David, it is so good to see that we have a picture of where we want to go, and that's very reassuring. And secondly, when we put that up there, what do we mean by that picture? What was that? And you've got an opportunity immediately to go through a discussion of that. Now, like all human interactions and discussions, that is open to interpretation and misinterpretation and what have you. But then it is a key point that everybody can come back to, because somebody else will have got the message or whatever and go, when I talked to my colleague, he said that about, this is where we're going. Okay, let's go back again. It's a training model. Yeah, he just says, this is where we're going to go. And it also prompts a discussion, because for a lot of people, they go, yeah, but how are we going to get there? And they go, well, not everything sits on my desk. Yeah, this is what we as an organization have settled on. I'm the owner of this organization, as it were. I've signed off on it. Yeah, I'm the leader in this space. And now we are going to work out how to get there. What are your ideas? Yeah. And almost always, because if you've done a fairly collaborative process up front, you've partly got some of your strategies in space, but you also partly know that it's going to be tough-minded optimism. There's going to be some stretch target in there, because you're going to need to continually improve that business model and what it looks like. And those discussions that follow afterwards, by looking at that picture, aim to effectively pull that alignment together and for people to start working on their own ideas. And an organization of 10 people, 100 people or whatever has got a lot of ideas into it. And sometimes the best idea is not in the managing director's office.
Yeah, too true. That's great, David. Thank you for sharing that. David, what would be your 2-minute tip to a CEO who wants to start thinking about creating a more visual vision and starting to actually involve people in it and then align the organization with it? What would be your 2-minute tip?
I mean, I think a 2-minute tip would start off by, if you're committed to improving the quality of your business, the way you run it, the way you see the future, is to use visual data more. And it may be, look, it just depends, I guess, but, there's a tendency that certainly, because there's a lot more data apparently readily available in the manufacturing side than on the commercial and marketing side, that I've always, a lot of my my experience has been on the manufacturing side. So we got pictures for everything. As an engineer, you have to draw a picture of the plant. It starts with flow sheets and diagrams and pieces of equipment to draw it up, because it's the only way that you can create something in the future is by making a drawing of it. But the same thing applies, in my experience, that I would encourage everyone at every part of it, doesn't matter you're in HR or IT or whatever, start making your data visual. And get a daily visual management board to look at your whole operation. It does wonders for the visibility of what's happening, and so on. Then the step is to understand that if you're going to want a clear vision of the future, you've got to put some quality time and thinking in how to do it. Not every CEO necessarily comes with those skills. And my observation again is that you probably need some help in there, and it doesn't need to be expensive. You don't need to be brilliant at drawing pictures. You can get someone afterwards to smarten it up, to make it your picture that you own. And there's plenty of people out there who are great at that, and they're not necessarily hugely expensive. But you've got to start working towards a picture, capturing those ideas and getting it on a piece of paper so they don't run away. Because it's like a dream. You had a dream last night. I might have had a dream last night. By the time you've woken up and you've got to the office and the first 100 emails have dropped in from the other side of the world, your dream of what your factory is going to look like, what your business is going to look like, what your brand is going to look like, just flew out the window with the rest of the first coffee.
Yeah. You could all of a sudden be heading off in a different direction rather than towards that vision that you have. Dave, what's been a recent insight for you, mate? What's been a recent learning that you've had that you didn't know before?
I mean, probably, again, it's still in that visual area. I think, most of my research in this sort of space has come down. I keep getting blown away by people who come up with quick comments, go, oh, it's so much better now we've got that visual thing in the workplace. Oh, now I can see how this business is going on. And just use of more visual data. And everybody says, but now I can't see that because I'm at home or working from whatever. But the power you've got now in computing and digital space to create pictures and to use data proactively is incredible. But we sort of get locked into it's a computer, therefore it's an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. I mean, but I've seen people do amazing things with Excel spreadsheets now, and you don't need to come with a PhD in mathematics to do it. The data is much, much more readily available. Use that and put it into a format that tells the story of what's going on. And every time I talk to people, it's just, I can see it now. And those words come out, you've heard them. I can see it now. Aha. Yeah. And certainly as an engineer, that's always been a powerful, important thing, because you're always working. But in my experience, until you see the product come out of the end, as a physical product, it's invisible.
Yeah.
It starts off as a gas, it ends up as a solid. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah. It's amazing. We verbalize what we want, isn't it? I can see it now. I can see that. I get that now. Yeah.
You get it. Yeah. And that words again is stimulated by our brain. Our brain wants to see it. As soon as you can put your business and put some clarity around it, great things tend to happen. Very interesting.
Inertia starts to play a part. It's brilliant. David, thank you so much for sharing, mate, and the knowledge that you've provided and everything you've done. David, how can people reach out to you to get some help? Because I can see, day, half day type things are very simple and fast and easy, but the power from it is huge. But how can people get in touch?
The easiest way probably is just to check us out on LinkedIn, to be honest. We do have a website, which is thevisionguy.com.au. But alternative, probably for a lot of people, our LinkedIn page, again, The Vision Guy, is there and available. You can see me in all the glorious colors, a couple of little videos and introductory stuff on how the process works, and just connect and send us an email from there. That's perfect. Way to go.
Well, David, thank you, mate, for everything you have done and you will continue to do to help us. And this episode has been extremely powerful and I've gained a lot myself, mate. Thanks for helping us create a better future.
You're welcome, Brad. Pleasure. Anytime. Always happy to help and talk some more.
Thanks, mate. Bye for now.
All the best. Bye-bye.
What a great episode. Remember, you can go to our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com, to get that download from David to really help you understand this further and to take action. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, draw it. The word vision describes what we need to achieve. You need to be able to see it. No more powerful way to see it than to actually create an image of it. I thought that was a really key takeaway for me. The second was create a visual workplace. Visuality of a human is so important. It's such a powerful sensor of ours. If your people can't see those critical measures, can't see that vision of the future, can't see how they're going at any minute of the day, the more live it can be, the better. I always think of a sporting team, and you think of a playing field where someone's playing sport. There's a big difference to if they're just playing a friendly game with no score and no visuality, to if there's a competition and the scoreboard's up there and you've got a team that has a clear vision of where it's going and a reason why. This can apply to a senior leadership team as much as it can apply to a frontline factory or sales team or marketing team or whatever team in your organization there is. To me, that's a key part of alignment. If you've got that, what I call a golden thread, that connection of vision and measures and strategic focus from the top to the front line, even down to the individual, and it's visual and people can see it at any minute of the day and know how we're going and where do we need to focus to adapt, to keep moving forward towards that vision, it's an extremely powerful outcome. Thanks again, David, for your time, for your knowledge, for everything you've done and will continue to do. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.